Indian National Security Advisor arrives in the island for trilateral discussions. Trade unions mull over a possible takeover of the East Container Terminal by an Indian businessman. 8 wildlife trade unions launch token strike opposing the actions of State Minister Vimalavira Dissanayaka. Fitch Ratings downgrades Sri Lanka's sovereign rating to CCC from B-. CD Vikramaratne takes office as the 35th Inspector General of Police. President calls on the newly appointed Mahanayaka of the Ramanya sect. New chairman appointed to the Sri Lanka Medical Council.
Hello there, a very good evening and welcome to Primetime News on TV1. I'm Charlene Benedict for the News First team. Starting off with a look at your top story tonight. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa called on the newly appointed Mahanayaka of the Ramanya sect, Most Venerable Agga Mahapandita Mahulave Vimalathera, and obtained his blessings.
The President arrived at the Vidyavasa Pirivena in Meedigama this morning. The President, who congratulated the Most Venerable Thero, engaged in a cordial discussion with the Thero thereafter. The President, who commended the service rendered by the Ramanya sect towards the betterment of many fields in the country, reiterated that the government's fullest support will be rendered to the efforts of the Ramanya sect. The Mahasangha bestowed blessings upon the President by chanting Pirit. The Presidential Task Force for Economic Revival and Poverty Eradication convened today under the patronage of its chairman, Basil Rajapaksa. It was decided to commence a series of meetings that will be held under the Wedasamaga Yaligamata Development Program that will come into effect from the 14th of December onwards. These meetings will focus on the 2021 budget, and Basil Rajapaksa had noted that this year's budget was not prepared by one individual. He also said that the budget was presented after long discussions and is an end result of many correct decisions taken for the benefit of the country's development and future. Basil Rajapaksa had emphasized that the development proposals put forward by this year's budget have to be taken to the rural level as well. Basil Rajapaksa added that discussions will be held with the Ministry of Health regarding tourists, and steps will be taken to revive the tourism industry of the country.
On to one of your top stories tonight. Wildlife officials representing 8 different trade unions launched an island-wide token strike today against the conduct of State Minister of Wildlife Vimalavira Dissanayaka, and also with the aim of protecting the environment.
When State Minister of Wildlife Vimalavira Dissanayaka came and met with the residents of Vehereyaya in Polonnaruwa earlier this week, the residents urged the minister to give back their lands that were taken from them for the Polonnaruwa floodplain project. The residents further requested the State Minister for permission for cattle to graze inside the Polonnaruwa floodplain and the Somavatiya National Park. However, the wildlife officials pointed out that the grave consequences of handing back the lands to the residents, and a heated argument ensued between the two parties when the latter issued a directive on the said matter.
ජාතික රක්ෂිතයක් වශයෙන් ගැසට් කරලා තියෙන්නේ රටේ අවශ්‍යතාවයට. ඒතකොට ජාතික රක්ෂිතයකට හරක් දානවා නම් මිනිස් ක්‍රියාකාරකම් වැඩක් නැහැ. එකක් කියන්න. මම තොත්ත බබෙක් නෙමෙයි මෙතන ඇවිල්ලා ඉන්නේ. නෑ සර් ඒක හරියට. ඔය තොත්ත බබෙක් කියලා තමයි. නෑ සර් එහෙම ගන්න බෑ. ඉන්නවා. මම නොදන්නවා මේ. ජාතික නීතිය රෝමය. ඔය මම මොකෙක් කියලා? හරි මේ ඔක්කොම මිනිස්සුන්ගේ අක්කත් එක්ක විතරනවා. දුවක්කු දෙක තුන තියන් ඉන්නේ හරක් ගාල් වල සර්. එහෙම ඉන්නවනේ අල්ලන්න. එහෙම ඉන්නවනේ අල්ලන්න ඒක. සමන්න අපි දිගල් නෙමෙයි සමන්න නැහැ. සමන්න නැහැ. නිලධාරීත් 100ට මේ අවුරුද්දට 100ට එකක් දෙකක් මැරෙනවා සර්. අලි ගහලා කකුල් කැඩෙනවා සර්. ජාතික අපරාධයක් සර්. සමන්න නැහැ සර්. සමන්න නැහැ ජාතික අපරාධයක්. ජාතික අපරාධයක්. අපි ලොක්ක නෙමෙයි සර්. අපි බොහොම පොඩි මිනිස්සු. අපි මේක වෙනුවෙන් කැප වෙලා වැඩ කරපු මිනිස්සු සර්. අපිට ඕම සලකපු එක.
Wildlife officials launched an island-wide token strike following this incident. This is how wildlife officials refrained from their duties in the Dambulupura and Thalawa villages in the Tamuttegama Divisional Secretariat.
මේ මිනිස්සුන්ගේ ජීවිත අවදානම
බුද්ධි ක්‍රියාමාර්ගයකට අපි අවනතයි. අපිත් ඒක සමාජික නිසා. ඔබ වහන්සේලාත් එක්කවත් මේ ගමේ කට්ටියත් එක්ක ප්‍රශ්නයකට නෙමෙයි. රාජ්‍ය අමාත්‍යතුමා ක්‍රියාකලාපයට විරෝධ දැක්වීම පමණයි මෙතන සිද්ධ වෙන්නේ.
විශේෂයෙන්ම කියන්න ඕනේ රාජ්‍ය අමාත්‍යතුමා සමස්ත වනජීවි දෙපාර්තමේන්තුවේ සමාව ගත යුතුයි. එතුමාට එන්න කියනවා මේ ප්‍රදේශයට බහැලා බලන්න.
Meanwhile, wildlife officials refrained from attending to their duties at the Yala and Boondala National Parks today. Officials of the Hikkadua Wildlife Office participated in the token strike, opposing the State Minister's actions. Wildlife officials and field assistants from the Polonnaru district joined the token strike as well.
If there are high occupational hazards in any job in Sri Lanka, the role of a wildlife officer will come to the fore. According to statistics from 2004 to 2018, more than 50% of wildlife officials have resigned from their positions. People who we employ these days only stay for a maximum of 2 to 3 months. The future of the department is in jeopardy when pressure is exerted on wildlife officials in this manner. The authorities have to once again think about the wildlife officials and reconsider what they are asking of you.
වනසත්ව හා වෘක්ෂලතා ආරක්ෂක ආඥා පනත අමුවේ උල්ලංඝනය කිරීම සඳහා තමයි තුමා අපිට බල කරන්නේ. අපි ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් වනජීවී අඩවි ආරක්ෂකවරුන්ගේ විධායක සභාව නියෝජනය කරන නිලධාරියෙක් වශයෙන් උත් වනජීවී නිලධාරියෙක් වශයෙන් උත් අපි දැඩි විරෝධය මේ අවස්ථාවේදී ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා. මගේ කාර්යාලයේ ලයිට් නැහැ, වතුර නැහැ, සෝලා ඒකින් තමයි අපි රාජකාරී කරන්නේ සෝලා පැනලයක් දාගෙන. එතකොට ඒ පහසුකම් සපයනවා වෙනුවට අපි සම්බන්ධයෙන් හොයලා බලනවා වෙනුවට වනජීව අමාත්‍යවරයා අතලොස්සක් පිරිසකගේ මේවා රටේ ලෝකයේ ජාතික සම්පත් සංරක්ෂණය කරනවා වෙනුවට මේ අතලොස්සකගේ ප්‍රාදේශීය දේශපාලඥයන්ගේ අවශ්‍යතාවයන් වලට ආධාර අනුබල දෙමින් රටේ ජාතික සම්පත් විනාශ කරන්න අපිට බලපෑම් කිරීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් අපි දැඩි විරෝධය ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
He should immediately apologize to the nation, not just the wildlife officers. He is an immature and inexperienced minister. We are ready to provide him tuition for him. We are sure that he has no knowledge on the matter, and we are not willing to let him ruin it. They are trying to destroy the ecosystems by tackling the wildlife officers. We will not let that happen. We have met enough people like Vimalaveera Disanayaka in the wildlife sphere of Sri Lanka.
ගැට ගහලා තියාගන්න. මේ ගැට ගහලා තියාගත්තේ නැත්නම් මේ කුලොප්පු වෙන තරමට ඔබතුමාට අවුරුදු 5වත් කරගන්න හම්බ වෙන්නේ නැහැ.
Vimalaveera Disanayaka මැතිතුමත් එක්ක පැන නැගී
The issue that gave rise to the incident with State Minister Vimalaveera Disanayaka was the acquisition of these lands that were cultivated by the locals in the area over many years without even paying them any compensation. They have deceived the court. They have made representations in court that compensation has been paid to these people and that alternate lands have been provided to them. Against such a backdrop, these people cannot even retain a lawyer. These actions of these officers are extremely deplorable. They are merely staging a media circus. If we are to provide clean deeds to these people, State Minister Vimalaveera Disanayaka will take stern decisions on these issues. Use the powers vested in you through this act. We are of the stance that the environment and the animals must be protected, but the people must also be protected.
The officials yesterday, according to what we saw, were not against cattle being taken into the forest. They were against the people who cut down trees in the forest and enter the forest under the guise of taking cattle into the forest.
You don't know about this. There has been no decision on the matter. There has been no decision on this plot of land. Why are you against a decision that we have not taken?
This recording has been published in the media. I believe that if you act patiently, you can save your dignity. State officials are intimidated by certain MPs who uprooted entire ecosystems in the lagoons and claimed we do not need oxygen to breathe.
No MP from this government has claimed we do not need oxygen. A different person has made that claim. Do not lie.
We can get an understanding of how you behaved yesterday. Those officials are fair. Honorable Minister, do not wear the hat.
තොප්පි දාගන්න එපා.
අපේ චමින්ද විජේසිරි මන්ත්‍රීතුමා ප්‍රකාශයක් කරවා ඔක්සිජන් එපයි කියලා කියපු
MP Chaminda Vijayasiri made a claim stating that there is an MP in the government who said oxygen is not required. There is no such MP. I was involved in the incident. It happened between a wildlife official and an area resident when I went there to inspect the harbour. I only intervened to settle the matter.
මම මේක මෙදිහත් උනේ බේරන්න විතරයි.
Indian National Security Advisor Ajit Doval, along with a delegation, arrived in the island this morning for trilateral discussions centering around defence. The discussions will take place between India, Sri Lanka and the Maldives.
This is Doval's second official visit to Sri Lanka this year. Ajit Doval was welcomed to the island at the airport by Commander of the Sri Lanka Army, Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, and the Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka. According to the Ministry of Defence, the official and his delegation have arrived in the country to take part in the 4th National Security Advisor or NSA level trilateral meeting on maritime security cooperation between India, the Maldives and Sri Lanka, set to be held today and tomorrow. The Indian National Security Advisor was accompanied by Deputy Military Advisor, Retired Admiral Monty Khanna and other officials. Retired Admiral Monty Khanna is a specialist in submarine technology. The Maldivian Defence Minister, Maria Didi, also arrived in the island to take part in the trilateral discussions. Bangladesh, Mauritius and the Seychelles are expected to participate as observers. The high-level engagement that covers a wide range of subjects is designed to initiate collective action on maritime security, including maritime domain awareness, legal regimes, training, search and rescue, maritime pollution response, information sharing, curbing piracy, drugs, arms and contraband trafficking in the Indian Ocean region. The meeting is convened this year after 6 years since the last meeting in New Delhi in 2014.
The Indian National Security Advisor Ajit Doval called on Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa this afternoon. The meeting took place at the Prime Minister's residence in Vijayarama Mawatha. During the meeting, the Indian National Security Advisor stated strategies to boost the economy and move towards development with other countries in the region should be identified. He called on Prime Minister Rajapaksa to take the lead in building a dialogue between countries in the region, as well as in creating a dialogue to find solutions to a recession and boost the economy. He stressed the government of India will extend its full support towards these efforts, recalling that housing schemes have been implemented in the north, east and central hills with the assistance of the government of India. The Prime Minister requested assistance to initiate such housing projects centered in south. Ajit Doval said the Indian government will provide support to this effort as well. At the meeting, it was agreed to launch a state-of-the-art drinking water supply project in Sri Lanka, a project which was first initiated in India, envisioned by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi.
Meanwhile, opposition MPs raised questions in Parliament today regarding the arrival of India's National Security Advisor in Sri Lanka.
Honorable Speaker, this is a question regarding the national security of the country. This morning we saw on the media the National Security Advisor of India coming to Sri Lanka. Is he coming for a discussion regarding the East Container Terminal?
ඒ ප්‍රශ්නෙට දිනයක් ඉල්ල ගන්න වෙනම දිනයක් ඉල්ල ගන්න අද නෙමෙයිනේ ඒක කරන්න ඕනේ හෙට ගන්න
A high-ranking official from India is touring Sri Lanka during a time when many factions have leveled allegations that there are attempts to allow the Indian Adani company to operate the East Container Terminal at the Colombo port. This terminal that can accommodate large ships is an important strategic location in the region. The Jai Bahalu Container Terminal, or the JCT, is operated by the Ports Authority, while the South Asia Gateway Terminal of the SAGT is operated as a joint venture between Sri Lanka and a multinational company. The Colombo South Terminal, also known as the Colombo International Container Terminal, is largely owned by China. This terminal is situated close to the port city. The Eastern Container Terminal is now at a critical juncture.
Under our policy vistas of prosperity and splendor, our government is of the stance that we will not sell any of our assets. But we need investors to develop these sectors. The nationality of these investors, whether they be Indian, Chinese, English or American, is not important. We will invite all investors to move forward. Any investor can come. None of these assets will be sold. On the 9th of last month, a cabinet paper to hand over operations of the East Container Terminal to the Indian Adani Group was approved at the cabinet meeting. We would like to point out to Minister Rohit Abegunawardena that Ranil Wickremesinghe sold the Hambantota port to an investor. Chandrika sold the Rajina Bridge to a foreign investor. Mahinda Rajapaksa sold the southern terminal to an investor. Even now they are speaking of an investor. So we would like to ask those in power as to what the meaning of this two-faced policy is. This government is preparing to move forward with the MOC that was signed by the Ranil Maitri government. We are now faced with the question as to if this arrival of an Indian dignitary is for the final discussions regarding this agreement. Based on their past conduct, it is abundantly clear that this visit is not aimed at curbing the spread of COVID-19 virus, because India is one of the worst affected countries by the coronavirus. We don't need their advice. There have been no issues with national security. The only thing that we can see is the fact that India wants the East Container Terminal. This is why he has come here.
The patriotic government of the 6.9 million, the government of Mahinda Rajapaksa and Gotabaya Rajapaksa has allowed India to rob the opportunity of us handling ships that can carry 24,000 containers. This is the government that claimed they would not sell national assets. If we are to obtain loans from India and if we are to continue re-exporting, that happens through Indian ports. If we want those things to take place, we have to bow down to the pressure exerted by India economically. This is an economic invasion. They don't bring the weapons out, they just threaten us. It is the same with China. They threaten us and we get scared when they say these things to us. There is a group since the time of Chandrika. They flock together devoid of any differences and make the country a target to foreign invasions.
In your COVID-19 situation update for today, with reports coming in of 3 more COVID-19 related deaths last night, the total number of COVID-19 deaths in Sri Lanka has risen to 99.
According to the Department of Government Information, an 87-year-old male from Colombo 8 have died at the Colombo National Hospital last night. The cause of the death has been identified as a bacteria infection in the respiratory system as a result of contracting COVID-19. The Department of Government Information said an 80-year-old male from Bambalapitiya was also reported dead on the 25th of this month at the Mulleriava-based hospital. The cause of the death has been ruled as high blood pressure, pneumonia and a heart attack related to COVID-19. A 73-year-old female from Paliagoda was also reported dead due to high blood pressure, diabetes and a stroke experienced due to COVID-19. She has died at the Colombo National Hospital on the 23rd of this month. Meanwhile, 251 new COVID-19 cases were reported today. With the new numbers, the total tally of COVID-19 cases in the country stands at 22,279. With the recovery of 410 patients, the total number of recoveries have risen to 16,226. According to the Ministry of Health, 6,364 patients are currently receiving treatment under medical care. A large gathering of low-income earners converged at the Abhayarama temple in Narayanpeta last evening to obtain dry rations which were being distributed by the temple. Venerable Muruthettuwe Anandathero, the chief incumbent of the Abhayarama, spoke to the media while the program was underway. Corruption and misappropriations are starting to come to the fore. We point out these shortcomings for the government to respond and to improve. There is no other reason, no anger or hate. However, it has now come to a point where our advice are fallen on deaf ears. They do not listen to the people. There are people who are claiming they do not have a means to obtain food and drinks. We have to empathize with them. An evident fact that we have to come to realize is that many officials in high post do not fulfill their duties. The person appointed as a secretary to the president works in breach of regulations. The country cannot move forward as long as he remains in the post. We can also see many officials are interdicted all of a sudden. The ethical man in the country will not approve of this. They attempt to exact revenge on anyone they detest. This is not what the people expected of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
කරන්න හදනවා. මේ අපේ ජනතාව ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂ ජනාධිපතිතුමාගෙන් අපේක්ෂා කරන්නේ ඕවා නෙමෙයි.
Former director of the CID, SSP Shania Besekara, who is under remand custody and is infected with COVID-19, figured heavily during several media briefings held by the opposition and also in Parliament. Honourable Speaker SSP Shania Besekara, who rendered an invaluable service, has contracted COVID-19 and has been transferred to a quarantine centre in Gallal from Mahara. There is a threat to his life from one hand. He is also diabetic. He suffers from heart disease as well. My only request from you is to transfer him to the IDH instead of treating him at a quarantine centre 200 kilometres away.
තුමාව කිලෝමීටර් 200කට වැඩි ප්‍රමාණයක දුර ඈත ප්‍රදේශයක නිරෝධායන කඳවුරකට නොව IDH රෝහලට යවන්නට කටයුතු කරන්නයි කියලා මම මේ මානුෂික ඉල්ලීම මේ අවස්ථාවේ ඉදිරිපත් කරනවා.
Meanwhile, former director of the CID, Shania Besekara, was taken to the IDH this evening.
Professor Vijay Jayaraj has been appointed as the chairman of the Sri Lanka Medical Council. He currently holds office as the Dean of the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Colombo. Professor Vijay Jayaraj succeeds former chairman of the council, Professor Harendra De Silva.
After holding office for an extended period as the Acting Inspector General of Police, C.D. Vikramaratne today assumed duties as the 35th Inspector General of Police. He assumed duties at the police headquarters.
The new chief of police joined the department in 1986 as a probationary assistant superintendent of police and served in the position for 34 years. IGP Vikramaratne was thereafter appointed as the acting IGP on the 28th of April 2019 following the April 21st attacks. He served as an acting IGP for 1.5 years before assuming duties as the 35th IGP of Sri Lanka. On the 1st of June 1947, Sir Richard Aluvihare was the first Sri Lankan to hold the office of Inspector General.
With the discussions on Sri Lanka's budget for the year 2021 still ongoing, Sri Lanka's economy is back in the limelight. Fitch Ratings has downgraded Sri Lanka's long-term foreign currency issuer default rating to CCC from B-, elaborating that there is a substantial credit risk. Fitch said there is no outlook or notches after a downgrade to CCC.
The statement issued by Fitch Ratings notes the downgrade reflects Sri Lanka's increasingly challenging external debt repayment position over the medium term. In particular, a sharp rise in the sovereign debt to GDP ratio associated with the coronavirus shock and narrowing financing options have heightened debt sustainability risks. It also adds, quote, "In our view, the budget lacks a credible fiscal consolidation strategy and provides only limited details on the potential revenue impact of some of the measures announced, raising uncertainty about the government's planned reduction in government debt and budget deficit," unquote. Fitch Ratings also expects Sri Lanka's GDP to contract by 6.7% in 2020 and to begin recovery in 2021 by 4.9%. The statement also reads, quote, "In the 2021 budget, the authorities have planned external borrowings of project and program loans mostly through bilateral and multilateral sources as well as foreign commercial loans for budget support. The authorities do not currently anticipate a financing arrangement with the IMF," unquote.
A new administrative secretary was appointed to the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. The move comes as a beginning to the reforms within the SLFP.
Sanath Vattagedara, who was a secretary to the SLFP trade union, was appointed as the new administrative secretary. His letter of appointment was handed over to him by the chairman of the party, former President Maithripala Sirisena, and General Secretary of the party, State Minister Dayasiri Jayasekara. Sanath Vattagedara, a former chairman of the Information Technology Resource Development Authority, is an alumni of Dharmaraja College, Kandy. He is well versed in the field of media and has held the positions of Media Secretary at the Ministry of Social Welfare, Transport and Special Projects.
Of course, with those incidents unfolding here in Sri Lanka's political arena, US President Donald Trump has hinted that he might concede the US presidential election after weeks of prolonged conflict over the results of the US president that concluded recently, and also unfounded claims on voter fraud leveled by US President Donald Trump. Moving back to some news from here at home, the Sri Lanka Potujana Peramuna, convening a media briefing today, responded to several allegations leveled by political and civil activists in the recent past.
The opposition continues to level accusations against us when certain parties are released on bail, even after we report facts to court and then they are remanded. They allege us when the police cannot find the perpetrators as well. When Pillayan was released after 5 years, the opposition blamed us. But we do not have to remind the people of this country as to how that same opposition completely disregarded the judiciary and the law of this country. Ranjan Ramanayaka asked whether Johnston Fernando will be imprisoned from DIG Ravi Vaidyalankara. Who are you going to put inside next?
Ranjan Ramanayaka Amatyore.
He is asking this from the Criminal Investigation Department. This next one is about Basil Rasheed.
Congratulations, Ranjan Ramanayaka. Thank you.
This is how they operated back in the day, to imprison and embarrass people in our faction. Today all of you are able to see this video. What they wanted is to bring the international court to Sri Lanka. People say that Ranjan Ramanayak is a lunatic, but he is not.
The previous regime decided as to who they are going to imprison, against who they are going to start investigations at the illegal anti-corruption committee at the Temple Trees. Now when the verdicts of those cases are to be delivered, a very example of a case that I can tell you is a case filed against Minister Janaka Bandara Tennakon, an incident in 1999. There are two cases at the Supreme Court, and the same defendant is in both the cases, the same witness in the same case. How can this happen? This is how cases filed during the time of the good governance government worked. Lalit Veeratunga, Anusha Palpita, Basil, Namal, Johnston, Mahindananda, Rohita Begunwardana, Gamman Pilla, Vimal Veeravansa, Janaka Bandara, Pillayan, Musammil and many people. Since we were from the government, we were being treated this way. This is what we have to remind you.
Newsfirst Gammadda initiative is a venture which aimed to solve the hardships of the common man, and sometimes during our travels we came across talents which are uncut, unrefined, but possesses the potential to impact the world. The story of Gammadda's discovery of Vijay is of a similar kind.
Our Gammadda team came across Vijay in the rural village of Palali Kilinochi while walking tirelessly from home to home in order to document poverty across Sri Lanka as part of its door-to-door program. When our team visited his home, Vijay Raj was eagerly watching a cricket match in a small room.
I went to ask what the score was. He was intently watching Malinga. I asked him if he likes cricket. He then claimed he could bowl fast.
Jayaraj hitapu gedarata ඉතින් එයා මාත් එක්ක ලකුණු ටික කියන ගාම කිව්වා මේ මම හරි ආසයි ක්‍රිකට් සෙල්ලම් කරන්න මට ලොකු උනන්දුවක් තියෙනවා පන්දු යවන්න මම ලසිත් මාලිංගට හරි ආසයි එයා පන්දු යවන ඉරියව්වට මම හරි ආසයි.
His hobby was bowling all day long.
I asked him if he could bowl. He showed me his own bat and ball. He bowled at a mesmerizing pace.
විකට් එක ගෙනියලා පිට්ටනියේ ඊටවලා ඊට පස්සේ පන්දු යවුවා කියන්නේ අපි ගිය හැම එකනටම හරි පුදුමයකටපත් වුණා.
Our teams managed to bring Vijay Raj back to Colombo with the assistance of the upper management of Newsfirst.
I saw Colombo for the very first time. I was given a job at Newsfirst. Everything changed back then. I went to practice at clubs.
Vijay, who was fortunate to attend practices at reputed cricket clubs in Colombo, bears bittersweet memories of those sessions. In a bid to remain informed during the recent lockdown which was imposed due to COVID-19, Vijay kept his bowling arm strong and supple by pulling on a rubber belt he tied to a door handle at his shared boarding room. Gammadda Vijay, also known as Kilinochchi Express, who once bowled barefooted at a solitary wicket in the blistering Kilinochchi heat, today represents the Jaffna Stallions at the Lanka Premier League. Gammadda Vijay, who only dreamt of playing top-flight cricket, steps onto the field of cricket shoulder to shoulder with some of the world's greatest cricketing talents. Tissara Pereira, Shoaib Malik, Usman Shinbari, Avishka Fernando, Dhananjay De Silva, Suranga Lakmal, Binura Fernando, Tom Moods, Minod Bhanukar, Mahesh Tikshana and Charita Salanka are the other players of the Jaffna Stallions squad. Vijay's story is a story of hope, resilience and ultimate triumph. Nothing is impossible if you strive relentlessly to achieve your dreams.
I would like to recognize your television show, Gammadda, for unearthing the talent of Sebastian Pillai Vijayaraj. He's an exciting bowler. He's in our squad. He came in as a net bowler. It's an exciting day for him, our family as well, the Jaffna Stallions family, and he's the promise of the future. We know that we have a long-term plan for developing cricket in the region. We have secured land in Jaffna City to build an academy. We are well committed beyond the LPL.
And with that inspirational story of a diamond in the rough, we bring to a close tonight's edition of Primetime News. I'm Charlotte Benedict for the Newsfirst team. Take care and good night.